Welcome to the Rapid Wrestling Recap. Getting a new name for this last weekend. It was the Rapid Recap. I think I called it the Wrestling Recap. Now we have an official name, the Rapid Wrestling Recap.
Subject to change.
Subject to change, yeah. Two undefeated teams right now, highlighted by the best team in the nation. Penn State has now beaten Ohio State and Iowa 28-13 over the University of Iowa. Had two falls. Bo Nickel looked good. Mark Hall looked good, but so did Spencer Lee at 125.
And Alex Marinelli at 165. Yeah, Penn State's on another level right now as far as dual meets are concerned. When we talked about last week show, we talked about Ohio State, Penn State. We never really got into the fact that Penn State won that dual meet without Jason Nolf.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
which is incredible. But what you're seeing top to bottom in that lineup is it's unbelievable right now. And there was a point in that dual meet after Marinelli beat Vincenzo Joseph where you looked at it like, you know what, Iowa could maybe win 97 in heavyweight and sneak out of this thing with a victory. But about 2 minutes later, those hopes were squashed for the Hawkeyes. Mark Hall comes out, gets a quick takedown, cradle, pin. Same with Bo Nickel, and the Nittany Lions are off the races at that point. And
have you seen depth like this at 197 for not just for Penn State, but Penn State has the depth at 197. It's incredible.
Yeah, you come into the season and Matt McCutcheon, I think, was ranked like 5, 6, 7 somewhere in there, and now he's not even in the race. You got two guys. Anthony Cassar comes out, beats Colin Moore a week ago, and then Shakur Rashid looked lights out against Cash Wilkie and putting up a major decision there. So yeah, the one thing that they have going for them is you look in that practice room and we mentioned the guys 49, 57, 65, 74, 84, but also David Taylor, Jake Varner, Cale Sanderson. There's no shortage of big guys for those guys to roll around with and get tested on a daily basis.
Although they did not win the dual meet, Michigan made some noise by dropping an 18-15 duel against Ohio State. Big news there. Adam Kuhn gets a 3-1 win over Kyle Snyder. Impressive, and I think a lot of people may be shocked. I don't think we are. We recognize that Adam Kuhn is a quality opponent, weighs about 280, athletic, has all those intangibles to be a great heavyweight. And I think just the excitement about the possibility of seeing him at the Big Tens and the national tournament only builds off of this match.
Yeah, and Adam Kuhn didn't win because he's 280 pounds. He won because he's a freak athlete and a heck of a wrestler who weighs 280 pounds. Certainly a size advantage, 65 pounds or so, thereabouts. We were doing the math a little bit earlier, and it's kind of like a 25-pounder bumping up, body mass size, wrestling a 57-pounder or 57-pounder going up to 97. But Kuhn certainly, from my vantage point, really controlled things. I thought one position that was really interesting in there is Snyder got in on a high crotch early in the match, and you've seen him be able to really lift guys up in the air and put them down hard. I think of NCAA finals last year with Connor Medbury where he did that and wasn't able to get Kuhn off the mat like he has on other guys. And one thing I'm going to be fascinated to see over the course of the next two matchups with these two is what kind of adjustments does Kyle make for the Big Ten championships and NCAA championships, because it seems to me like these guys are on another plane than everybody else right now.
And we were talking about it before this broadcast, is I certainly have this tendency is when you have credentials like Kyle Snyder does, that all of a sudden they have this invincibility dust that gets sprinkled on them, and that's not the case. You said it, Adam Kuhn is a great wrestler, and it's really not surprising that he would drop a match like that, given someone who's so athletic in a weight class that really is tough. It's not easy to score at heavyweight, and Adam Kuhn did a great job.
Well, I think, one quick point on that. I think we probably formed that opinion a little bit with Kyle just because of what their match looked like a couple years ago in the Big Tens. Snyder kind of controlling things there, and then only the results from that point forward. What he accomplished, going on, backing it up at the Olympics, winning a world championship, beating Sadulayev, going over to Urigan, going back-to-back over there. But in listening to some of the Michigan people talk, Adam Kuhn got a heck of a lot bigger and stronger during that season last year while he was redshirting.
Missouri also undefeated. They're going to end the year with their last 2 dual meets. They still don't have a loss in the dual meet column. They haven't maybe faced a Big Ten schedule, but a good team nonetheless.
Yeah, certainly on a dual standpoint, from a dual standpoint, and they've got some individual hammers in there. Daniel Lewis climbing the rankings at 174. He's had an incredible season. The big question with Missouri is how this team is built for March, and can they get some of those guys, Willie Miklas, John Ernesty, can Ironman stay up where he's at in the rankings, make a run to the NCAA finals? Grant Leith. They got a lot of guys that are in that, like, say, 3 to 8 range, 8-9 range in the rankings, and can they finish up towards the top half of that, up towards the top end of that, and help Missouri bring home a trophy this year? I think is going to be really interesting to see. But dual-wise, there aren't a lot of holes in that lineup.
Oklahoma State versus OU. Bedlam, they've won the last 15 of 16. This used to be the dual meet historically. It's gone downhill, but still worth noting. Oklahoma State wins 31-6, and Oklahoma State has had an interesting season in that they go overseas, they go to Italy. Maybe not the production we thought, or at least I thought going into the season, but maybe they're making a little bit of a push to get back in that trophy contention.
Well, as you mentioned, they were all over the place like the first half of the season, and I think they went almost like 2 months without a home dual meet, something like that. It was crazy where all they had been and the miles that they had piled up, and now the schedule is set up for them to spend most of February or most of the second half of January and February in Stillwater. So I think we're going to see a fresher team down the stretch. And then to the point about the dual series, and one of the things that's going to be a real big challenge for Lou Rosselli is in-state recruiting there. I can't think of another program, can you, that has a bigger lock on in-state prospects than Oklahoma does, or Oklahoma State does in Oklahoma. And so that's something that is going to be a challenge for Lou Rosselli going forward. I think what you've seen in the early going, he's gone back to Ohio, he's gone to PA, and picked some pretty good prospects out of those states and become more of a national recruiting type of operation. But help is on the way for the Sooners, but certainly the Cowboys still have a big edge in that state.
Iowa State certainly needs some help just as far as just getting some guys in the lineup. They've dropped another series of guys headlined by Kanan Storr. But this is all part of that building process or rebuilding process for Kevin Dresser. He just wants his team. He wants the identity for his team. And I think this is the way you do that. You get the guys that want to be there. And Kevin Dresser's been good about just letting these guys go and saying it won't be a Big 12 school, but you're going to have to go outside the Big 12 if you want to transfer out of Iowa State.
Yeah, and sometimes when you have coaching changes, things like this happen, right? I mean, there's philosophy changes, culture changes, coaching style changes, and a lot of the guys that left were recruited by Kevin Jackson and his staff. They might not be fits for Kevin Dresser and his, and so now Iowa State has a little bit more money, I'm sure, to play with in recruiting, and hopefully the guys that have left the program also feel like they. Hopefully they find a better fit for themselves too, and that their careers can continue on and feel good about the sport and their experience of wrestling in college.
UNI wins handily over Iowa State. This weekend is going to be another historically great meet, Iowa versus Iowa State. You being at the Des Moines Register and the Iowa City Press-Citizen, you've had a long scope of this dual meet. It's going to be a manhandling by Iowa, but regardless, it's still Iowa versus Iowa State, and there should be some fun matchups.
Yeah, and I think the new regime at Iowa State adds a little fireworks to it. Yep. You got some guys with some history there with Iowa, both recent and a little bit further in the past, and some rivalry there. Some guys that maybe left Iowa with some hard feelings or have some hard feelings towards the Hawkeyes, and maybe vice versa now. So the coals have been stoked a little bit, and I think we will see more competitive duels between the two schools in the future as Iowa State reshapes its roster, but it's going to be a fun duel nonetheless, I think.
We'll end with that. The Wrestling Rapid Recap, we'll stick with that pending change.
Rapid Wrestling Recap. You already changed it, Kyle.
I changed it, man. So I'm glad you qualified that with pending change. I just changed it at the end there without knowing. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you'll join us next week for another edition.